Welcome to Comparative Media, CMST 410 and CMST 510. My name is Rob McKenzie. I'm the instructor for the course. I'll be introducing myself a little bit more to you in our introduction videos that we'll all be participating in. But for now, I'll just tell you I'm a professor and the chairperson of the Department of Communication. And like a lot of people, I've been housebound. I've been housebound not with just other Americans, but all across the world. People are housebound to a large extent because of the coronavirus. And in the middle of this pandemic, one of the phenomena that has taken place is the explosion of streaming services, and particularly Netflix, as people look to escape the day in and day out doldrums of their household existences. They're turning to the big screen, and they're turning to Netflix more and more. Netflix subscriptions are way up. According to the Los Angeles Times, Netflix has gained 15.8 million global subscribers just since the corona pandemic. 15.8 million subscribers. It now has a total of 183 million customers. And one of the shows that has been a breakout show from Netflix is a show called Money Heist. Have you seen it? Money Heist? It's a Spanish-produced program. It takes place in Madrid, Spain. And ostensibly, it's about a bunch of bank robbers that go into the Spanish Mint, where money is made, like we have the Franklin Mint in Philadelphia. And they're going to rob the mint, but what you find out very quickly is that this show is about much more than that. It's all about who are the bad guys, bad people I should say, and who are the good people in life. Is it the police and the army, or is it these hostage takers, as they call themselves? Also, there's a lot of sexuality in this Money Heist, the series. A lot of interplay between males and females, between homosexuality and heterosexuality. So that's going on in Money Heist as well. And then there's a whole philosophical side to Money Heist as well, asking questions that are greater questions about the purpose and sense of life, and about the things that have happened to us in childhood and whether they affect the way that we are as adults. So these are just some of the sub-themes that are going on in this very popular show. It's a show that probably would never have broken out in recent years across the world with such success. It's the #1 viewed show in many countries right now in the past because it's a Spanish language show. And even though Spanish is the second most spoken language across the world, the most spoken language being Chinese, and English is only the third most spoken language. Even though Spanish is the second most spoken language, we wouldn't normally have a Netflix breakout program like Money Heist being aired in the United States and being so popular as it is all across the world. And so we're going to ask the question about shows like that: what is it about those shows and the way that they're composed that leads them to end up in the form that they are in? What leads all of the different factors that go into producing a television program to come out the way that it's come out in Money Heist? Well, in order to ask that question, it requires a systematic look into the media. And that's what we're going to be doing in this class called Comparative Media. We're going to be taking a look at media as systems. And the content that we see, whether it's a Netflix streaming show or a movie in a theater or a television program or a newspaper or a magazine or a radio show or a radio song, whether it's any of those kinds of media, that's just the content that we end up with. We need to go deeper if we're going to understand how media end up being shaped the way that they're being shaped. And that's what this class is all about. We're going to do it through a comparative perspective. I designed the class many years ago for ESU, and the ideal reasoning behind why you take a comparative approach in any class in a university setting is you are seeking a reference point. That's why you compare. That's how you learn in life, whether you're short or tall. That's how you learn in life, whether you're young or old, by comparing yourself to other people. And so we're going to be comparing media systems throughout this class. We're going to be comparing media systems both at an international level, which means taking a look at media system in one country versus another country. And we're also going to be looking at comparing media at a more micro level, which is to say between media within our own country. And I'll say more about that in a few moments. This is an online course. It's an online course that was originally going to be taught in Mexico. I've been teaching this class overseas for many years. I've taught it in China, St. Croix, France several times, England a few times, Sweden. I've taught it in the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and most recently I've been teaching it in Mexico. But because of the pandemic, we have the class taking place completely online, and it's going to move quickly. I'm here to tell you, you're going to have to really devote yourself to this class over the next few weeks. You're going to be very busy over the next 3 weeks. There's going to be something due every day. And so you're going to need to stay on top of things. And we're going to be discussing the syllabus in a moment. But let me just tell you, my experience with students who do well in online classes is they know what's due and when it's due. And the students who do not succeed in online classes, they don't know what's due and they don't know when it is due. And they miss deadlines. It takes a tremendous amount of discipline to be able to succeed at an online course. And I know everybody in this class has it. That's why I'm saying it up front. I want you to be able to stay on top of things. And the yellow brick road for that, so to speak, is your syllabus. And so let's talk about the syllabus now. I'd like you to bring it up. You can pause the video if you want while you get it up on your screen. The syllabus is posted on D2L under the Content tab. As an online course, we'll be using D2L to deliver this content for this class to all of the students. And the three major tabs that we're going to use are going to be the Content tab, and then we're going to use the Discussions link, which comes under the Communication tab, and then we're going to use the Dropbox, which comes under the Assessment tab. So the three tabs are Content, Communication, and Assessment. Those are the three main tabs that we'll be using throughout the semester. And if you bring up the syllabus, let's go through it now. Once again, my name is Rob McKenzie. I have a Ph.D. from Penn State University. Also have my master's degree from there, and my bachelor's degree is from Millersville University, a degree in history, just like ESU. I've been in your shoes many years ago. And I am the chair of the Department of Communication. There are no office hours this summer, but if you need to get in touch with me, you can email my secretary. I'm going to provide that information on the D2L page. Her name is Marina Cameron, and she'll set up an appointment for you. Or you can email me directly. But usually I like to talk to students in person if it's a complicated question, because email only often makes things more murky. All right, there are three potential readings for the course, depending on whether you're an undergraduate or you're a graduate. So the first one is my book. It's called Rounding Some Corners. And this is a book of columns that I wrote for the Pocono Record over a 3-year time span. But I don't want you to think that these are newspaper columns in Rounding Some Corners. They are not. These are columns that are, as the subtitle says, observing life's oddball ironies. They're observing life's oddball ironies. Each column takes about 2 minutes to read. And the basis of many of the columns is people's use of media, like the column, How Long Is Your Leash? That's a column all about how we are tied to the leash of our cell phones, to the cords of our cell phones. Every time we go into a room, we're looking for an outlet. We're constantly aware of the battery being depleted. And so we're kind of stuck hanging around that outlet. That's an example of the kinds of columns that you will find. So you're going to need to have that book, and we're going to start reading from it today, actually, and the first assignment is going to be due tomorrow. That's Rounding Some Corners. Most of the columns are intended to be humorous. They're intended to be funny. And they do that, I hope, with a double meaning that comes in usually in the very last line of the column. You have to look hard for it sometimes, but there's usually going to be a second meaning there, which is in turn pointing out an oddball observation of an irony in life. So as you get to know that book, hopefully you'll be able to see the use of humor to get us to realize some of our human condition. And you get to choose whatever columns you want in the book. You don't have to go through the order of the book. You can go front to back. You can go back to front. You can randomly pick columns in the middle. At the back of the book, there's an index that will give you subject areas. So all of the columns on holidays, for example, you can just go through those if you want. So that's Rounding Some Corners. That book is published by Fountainhead Press. You can get that book either through the university store, our university store, or you can get it from Amazon, or you can get it right from Fountainhead Press. All right, next up is readings, or our readings, I should say, from a book that I also wrote, which is not current enough for me to require and have you purchase. It's called Comparing Media from Around the World, but it still has the basic framework of information that will allow us to dissect media systems. So I have posted this material on D2L, and that's available under the Content tab, and we'll be reading from that tomorrow. And that material, you will see, will provide us with the basic concepts that we will then be using for our assignments. So that book was published in 2006, And a lot of the information in it, I studied 8 countries in it. I went around the world. I interviewed some of the most important media regulators. For example, on the banks of the Seine in France, I was interviewing somebody from the CSI, which is the version of the FCC in France. And I gathered a lot of information from 8 countries, including China, the UK, France, uh, Sweden, Mexico, Lebanon, and Ghana, Africa. Ghana, Africa, which was a country that I went to gather research for this book. So you'll get to benefit, so to speak, from it being free, because some of the information on the statistics of television watching in Ghana, for example, is out of date. So I don't require you to purchase that anymore, but we'll still use the concepts to dissect media systems. Now is a third set of readings for the course too, and that's going to be for graduate students in the class. Graduate students in the class will have extra requirements, and they will be performing according to a higher standard in the class when it comes to evaluation. And so one of the areas where graduate students have extra work is in research. This is a research-based class, but for graduate students, they'll be conducting original research versus the undergraduates, which will be taking a look at and understanding current and previously published research. So the graduate students will have to come up with 3 journal articles in the course, and then amongst the graduate students are going to be breaking those journal articles down and discussing them. More about that later. All of the guidelines for all of the assignments are posted on D2L. All right, next up, I want to go over the course outcomes. I'm going to skip over the D2L paragraph on the syllabus. You can read that on your own. There is a help desk number. If you need help, that's where you go. So now let's take on the course outcomes. So in this course, I have 4 outcomes for you. One is to experience media content from other countries. We will all be participating in that. Today we're going to be selecting a country, or you will be selecting a country that you'll be studying all semester long, and you'll be providing examples of media content from that country so that we can all take a look. Number 2, I want you to be able to identify and analyze elements of a media system. What makes up a system? That's what we're going to be studying in successive days here as we go through the course. Tomorrow we're going to start to study part of that media system, and then each day we're going to break down an element that makes up the media system, such as financing, such as regulation, such as philosophies that exist in the country, such as cultural characteristics. These are what I refer to as elements which make up a media system. So that's goal number 2, identify and analyze elements of a media system. And then goal number 3 is to identify and synthesize, put together cultural assumptions that lead to the creation of media content. What goes on in the culture that then influences the media content? You have to take a look at the country in many respects to understand the culture. And then finally, I want you to be able to analyze and synthesize issues of media fairness that are related to globalization. Not all countries feel that they're treated equally out there, especially when it comes to the way that they are represented in the media. We're going to be taking that on. All right, next up on the syllabus is departmental outcomes. I'm going to let you read those on your own. These are outcomes that we say are true for no matter what course you take in the Department of Communication, and they should be true for every single course. Next up is special accommodations. If any of you have special accommodation needs as certified through the Office of OASIS on our campus, that office will provide that certification, and then I can accommodate those needs in terms of what you need. All right, next up is email etiquette. And here's my etiquette policy. When students address me, you should use a salutation. Don't just send me a sentence in an email. When is the assignment due? That's not the way the email works. It's part of my job as a professional to teach you the decorum of email, and it has a professional dimension to it that is very different from texting, where it's totally appropriate to speak like the way I just spoke. So when you email me, I want you to use a salutation. It's a hello, or good afternoon, or Rob, or professor, or doctor, or whatever you want to use that makes you feel comfortable with. That's email etiquette. I also have a plagiarism policy, and that is that all work in this class, continuing on with the syllabus here, must be your own work. You are not permitted to cut and paste sentences from the web or any other source. And if you use ideas that you found from other sources, you have to either cite those ideas and then also extend off of them with your own ideas. So you will be using quotes in this course. You will be bringing in research and using it in some of your answers for some of the assignments, and it's perfectly acceptable to use quote marks, but you need to also be breaking out of those quotes and extending the ideas on your own. All right, now let's get into the specific course requirements for undergraduates. I've got it broken down in the syllabus here for both undergrads and graduates. For undergraduates, for almost every day, there's going to be an instructor video, just like this one. It'll be posted by 1 p.m. under the Content tab to start the class. Okay, then in addition to that, we are going to begin the very first assignment today. It's called RSC Posts. RSC stands for my book, Rounding Some Corners. RSC Posts, you're going to have 15 posts that are worth 1 point each, and that's a total of 15 points in the class. So your first one is going to be due by 1 p.m. tomorrow. Assignments are always due by 1 p.m. the next day. That's how you can get into a rhythm in this class and plan accordingly. So 1 p.m. tomorrow is going to be your first RSC post, and I'll say more about what that is when we get to the end of this video lecture when I tell you what your tasks are for today. But for now on the syllabus, know that undergrads have RSC posts. Next up on the syllabus, undergraduates also have country media response posts. Country media response posts, that's where each student in this class is going to post a sample of media content from their country on D2L under the discussions link. So we're going to get to see a TV show, we're going to get to see a web page, we're going to get to hear a song from a radio program. It's whatever you want to choose as media content from your country, and then all of the students in the class are going to analyze that media content, and you're going to figure out why the content looks like it does based on the elements of media that we're studying for a particular day. You'll see how that works better when we get to that assignment, but everybody is going to have a country in this class, and everybody's going to be given an assigned day to make a posting. All right, so our very first person who's going to be making an assignment is going to be required to make a post, is going to be required to make that post by tomorrow, and I will identify that person and send you an email who that's going to be. All right, next up for undergraduates, you have a research paper. The last assignment, country media post, is worth 60 points. So that's 15 points and then 60 points. 15 points for RSC posts, and then country media response posts are 60 points. And then next up we have the research paper, and that's worth 20 points. And this is a research class. This is a 400 level class for undergraduates and a 500 level class for our graduate students. So this is a 20-point assignment, the research paper, and each undergraduate student will complete a 12 to 15-page research paper where you compare a sample of media content from your selected country with a sample of media content from another country. So you're going to be looking at two countries, and you're going to be working with one other student in the class to learn about that country. So more about that later. To help you along in that assignment, you'll also have to complete a research paper proposal. That's next up on the syllabus. Research paper proposal, that's worth 5 points. That's for you to pitch an idea for your research paper, and for me as your professor to be able to give you feedback and hopefully some guidance on how you can shape the design of that paper before you go full-blown into completing it. So for undergraduates, that's it for the course. It's 100 points, all of those things. And like I said, the course moves very quickly starting today. Now let's look at the course requirements for the graduate students. Graduate students, you also have the same instructor videos, which I'll be starting class out with. You also will be having RSC posts. Each one of you is going to make 15 posts. And then also, you're going to have country media response posts. Once again, each student will make a post of a sample of media content. I'm going to assign that to you. And then all of the students are going to need to respond to that post, analyzing and speculating how that content relates to the concepts that we're studying on a particular day. More about that assignment tomorrow when I give it. All right, in addition, graduate students have student-selected research article evaluations. You will have 3 research articles that you're going to select. They're worth 5 points each. These are journal articles, refereed journals as we refer to them. They're published by scholars who don't have their names reviewed when their work is reviewed. That's what ensures the integrity of the process. There's no favoritism because somebody is well known or well liked. The research is examined by a panel of experts, and if they decide that it's publishable, it gets published in a journal. That's the basis of the integrity of academic research. So you're going to have 3 of those to take a look at. They're going to be comparative research articles. First one's going to be due this Friday, so I'll say more about that when we get closer. Then also, graduate students have a research paper. Their research paper is worth 40 points, and this research paper will be 15 to 20 pages long for graduate students in the class. Again, you'll be comparing media content between your country and another country working with another graduate student. The papers are graded individually, but you work with the other student to learn about their country. And then you have the research paper proposal, and each student will complete a research proposal for review by the instructor prior to the research paper being submitted, for the same reasons that undergraduates have to submit that. All right, now we go on to the tentative schedule of events. That's next up on the syllabus. And now that's going to take us to giving your assignments for tomorrow and bringing us to a conclusion for this video. So the first thing that you have to do is to record and post an introduction of yourself. So call it Rob McKenzie Introduction or whatever your name is, and that's going to be posted under the discussions link under the Communication tab. In this 2-minute video, you'll cover some basic items, which I have provided for you on D2L. So it'll be a 2-minute video that you're recording, and that's just for us to get to know each other. We're all sitting here in our houses, behind computers, behind cell phones, and so we're going to try and bring the class together as much as we can in that way, and that's what this assignment is all about. Then secondly, you are to take a look at my curriculum vitae. That's a fancy word for resume. Professors use curriculum vitas. I want you to take a look at mine. I want you to ask me a question. And this is a way for you to get to know my credentials without me giving a long speech on it, and so that you can assess where I might be strong in information and might be weak in other areas. And I also want you to be able to ask me a question based on reading my CV. So you'll do that under the Discussions tab. Again, both of these assignments due by 1 p.m. tomorrow, your introduction and also the question on the CV. Then next up is your first RSC post. So what your first RSC post is all about, again, due by 1 o'clock tomorrow, is where you select 2 columns. And what you are comparing is not the columns. Do not make the mistake of comparing the columns. That's where you lose points. And do not summarize the columns. The point of this assignment is not to summarize the columns. The point of this assignment is to compare the media that are either discussed directly in the columns or implied by the columns. And you'll see what I mean. Some of the columns don't necessarily have media in them automatically, like Valentine's Day. You have to reach for it and find out what the column is talking about when it's talking about Valentine's Day and what media might be involved, like the gift card. The gift card is a mass medium, and that's involved in Valentine's Day. So you're comparing the media that are either directly discussed in the column or implied by the column, and you're comparing the media based on 2 dimensions. 2 dimensions. One dimension is form, and the second dimension is content. So in form, you're looking at how the medium looks and feels. For example, if you listen to Top 40 radio, you can say the look and the feel of that is a frenzied, chaotic pace. That's what Top 40 radio is all about, is to keep things moving. It's for a younger audience, so they're more inclined to want to hear somebody with higher energy. And there's a lot of pop music that's played with bits of information that are given out in between the music about the performers, about who dropped in on this album, about any personal struggles they're having, about the meaning of a song. All of this comes across very quick pace, and you can say that the look and the feel, or the form of Top 40 radio, is frenzied and fast-paced. The content is the second element that you're looking at when you're looking at RSC posts. The content is the specific information that you can often find. So what information do you often find in Top 40 radio? You'll find weather information, you'll find traffic information, you'll find trivia about entertainers. That's what you'll often find in Top 40 information. You're not going to find content that is the latest review of a scientific book. You're not going to find content that is an interview with a professor on Top 40 radio. This is content you won't find. So for your RSC post, keep your eye on the ball here. You're always comparing form and content between the media implied in the columns. And in your post, you should be using the words content. You should be using the word form to help me find exactly where your analysis is on these 2 dimensions. You should be using information, the word information, when you're talking about content. You should be using the words look and feel when you're talking about form. So that's your first post. That's going to cause you to have a micro comparison of media within our country across the rest of the semester. I told you this class does a macro comparison, media between countries. The RSC posts are designed to have you comparatively analyze media from a micro point of view. And then your final task for today is to sign up for a country. This is the country that you and you alone are going to be studying for your research paper. You're going to be posting content from that country, media content from that country as we go through the class. So choose a country. Choose a country that you've always wanted to learn about based on your heritage, or your country that you've always wanted to visit. It can be any country other than the United States. I hope some of you get really creative and choose not a country that is an automatic European country, which many people, you can choose a European country, but I hope that some of you come up with some more, some less common choices there. So this then wraps up our very first instructor video. Once again, welcome to Comparative Media.